I never thought I'd be writing a story like this about my own life, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I was with Lisa for nearly 10 years. We had a kid, our little girl, Emma. She was just 4 when everything started to fall apart. At first, I just noticed the little things. Lisa getting defensive when I asked where she'd been after work, her phone always face down, the way she'd brush past me faster than usual. But I blamed myself. Maybe I was just paranoid. Maybe I was imagining things. We had our rough patches, sure, but I loved her. I never thought she'd cheat, especially not with someone like the prosecutor who was building a case against that drunk driver who killed Emma. That case was all anyone talked about in town. Justice for our girl felt like everything to me. It all started with small signs. Lisa acting tense around me, snapping at me over nothing. She'd get calls late at night and rush to answer, her voice low and hurried. I'd catch her glancing at her phone, nervously shoving it away when I appeared. She'd say she was talking to her sister or a friend. But her tone was off, irritated, sometimes even defensive. But I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I'd been burned before, so I kept quiet, thinking I'd be patient. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe she was just tired of me. But then I started noticing her texts. Hidden behind apps I'd never seen before, messages that seemed overly flirtatious. Nothing explicit yet, just enough to make my stomach twist. One night I came home early from work. I'd been feeling off all day, something wasn't right. I decided to check her phone, thinking maybe I was overthinking it. I didn't plan to go through everything, but I just had this strange gut feeling. And there it was, messages from someone named John, talking about meeting up. The tone was intimate, playful, even suggestive at times. I saw talk about dinner, sex, and how they couldn't wait to see each other again. My heart started pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. I looked at her phone, then again at her, trying to hold it together. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her tablet, acting innocent. I confronted her then and there, my voice trembling but angry. Who the hell is John? Who are you really seeing? Her reaction floored me. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk like I was just some inconvenience. Oh, come on, Mike. You're overreacting. It's just some guy from work. It's nothing. You're paranoid. You always think the worst. She lied so easily with that fake little laugh, but I wasn't buying it. I knew that wasn't just some innocent flirt. That was something more, something real. My mind raced through all the signs I'd missed, the late nights, the secret calls, the way she'd suddenly be so aloof. I felt like I'd been blindsided by a train. She'd always told me she loved me, that I was her everything. And now I was discovering she had been lying right to my face. The emotional blow hit me hard. I felt this crushing mixture of anger, betrayal, and deep sadness. How could she do this? After everything we went through, losing Emma, struggling to keep our family afloat, she just threw it all away for some guy. A man who, I later learned, was connected to the case that tore us apart. She was involved with him in some way. I found out later that she had hidden evidence from the case, evidence that could have brought justice faster, but instead she suppressed it to protect someone connected to her affair. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about a cheating wife. It was about something darker, something that shook my trust in everything. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying her words, her lies, her sneers. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs. How could she lie so easily? I thought I knew her, thought I knew us. But she was such a different person behind closed doors. It was like discovering a whole other side of her, cold, selfish, manipulative. And the worst part, I knew this was just the beginning. There was more underneath. I could feel it in my gut. This was bigger than just some affair. It was intertwined with the justice case, the case that was supposed to bring us closure, and now it was compromised. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew I couldn't stay blind to it anymore. I had to face her, but I also knew that whatever game she was playing, I was about to change the rules. The confrontation with Lisa that night was a disaster waiting to happen. I remember standing there, my fists clenched so tightly my knuckles went white. She sat on the sofa, eyes flicking away, trying to act like she hadn't just been caught red-handed. She was bitchy from the start, throwing those little jabs, twisting everything I said. Oh, so now you're spying on me. Real mature, Mike. She snapped, crossing her arms. You think I've been cheating on you forever, please. You're just jealous because I have a life unlike you who's been working himself to the bone just to keep us afloat." Her words cut like knives. I felt the anger boiling over, but I kept my voice as steady as I could despite the storm inside. "Don't give me that bullshit, Lisa," I shot back. "I saw the messages. I know about John. Don't lie to me anymore. Who is he? What's really going on?" Her eyes narrowed and she looked at me like I was an idiot. "John, you're imagining things. That's just some guy from work I talk to sometimes. Nothing more. I don't owe you an explanation for every damn message." "I get," she leaned forward, smirking. "Maybe you should focus less on my phone and more on your own flaws, Mike. You're not exactly perfect, you know." I was furious. I wanted to scream, but I kept my composure. "You expect me to believe that after everything? You've been sneaking around for weeks, hiding your phone, lying about where you're going, and now you're telling me it's just nothing." I shook my head, trying to process it all. "You're lying, Lisa. You've been lying to me all along." She rolled her eyes, pretending to be bored. "Look, I don't have time for your paranoia. I'm tired of this whole thing. You're just insecure, Mike. Maybe if you paid more attention to me instead of spying, I wouldn't need to go elsewhere to feel alive." That was her way of turning it around, making me the bad guy, but I knew better. I knew she was lying. I could feel it in my gut. The anger and hurt were overwhelming. I'd loved this woman, trusted her with everything, and now I was discovering she had been betraying me, not just with some guy, but probably for months. The part that cut the deepest was knowing she'd lied so effortlessly, as if it was nothing, like I was just some fool to be played. I couldn't help but think about Emma, her little face, innocent and pure, and how this betrayal was corrupting everything. How could she do this? How could she be so cold? That night after she stormed off to her bedroom, I sat alone in the living room. My mind was racing. I felt that familiar rage building up, rage at her, at myself, at the situation. I'd always believed in loyalty, in honesty, and now I saw her for what she really was. Not a partner, not someone I could trust blindly anymore. I kept thinking about the evidence, the phone, the messages. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what yet. All I knew was that I wasn't going to let her keep playing me for a fool. She thought she could lie her way out of it, but I wasn't going to let her. I also started to wonder how deep this ran, how much she was involved with the case against that drunk driver, Emma's killer. I'd heard rumors that Lisa might have been connected to some of the people working on that case, maybe even involved with someone who was trying to cover their tracks. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about justice, or the lack of it. She had her own reasons, her own secrets, and I was beginning to see that I was in way over my head. The pain was intense, knowing my wife had lied, cheated, and possibly manipulated things behind my back to protect someone connected to the case that mattered so much to me. I wanted answers, but I also knew that getting them would mean facing truths I wasn't ready to accept. Still, I couldn't stay quiet. I had to dig deeper, find out what she was hiding, and figure out what to do with this sickening knowledge. The next few days felt like walking through a fog of confusion and anger. I tried to keep my cool, but every time I saw Lisa, I could feel my blood boiling. She acted like nothing had happened, throwing on her fake smile and pretending we were just fine. But I knew. Better, I knew she was hiding something massive. Every time she left the house, I'd secretly follow her, just to see where she was going, who she was meeting. I didn't want to believe it, but I started catching her in little lies, little slips that confirmed my worst fears. One afternoon, I managed to steal her phone when she wasn't looking. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but I had to know the truth. I scrolled through her messages, her emails, anything I could find. And what I found was worse than I expected. There were emails from someone named Carter, a name I recognized. Turns out, Carter was an assistant district attorney involved with the case against that drunk driver. That's when it hit me like a ton of bricks. Lisa wasn't just cheating. She was deeply involved with someone connected to the case that had torn our lives apart. The messages weren't just flirtatious, they were manipulative. Carter was promising her favors, telling her she was smart and important, that she could help him close the case faster if she played her cards right. Lisa was feeding him information, hiding evidence and playing both sides. I felt sick. All this time I thought she was just a bitchy wife cheating on me, but now I saw she'd been part of something darker, something that could have compromised justice for Emma. I couldn't believe she'd do that. I mean, I knew she hated the system, always talking about how corrupt it was, but to actually manipulate it from the inside, to use her position, her influence to cover up evidence, it was sickening. I was furious but also devastated. How could she betray Emma like this? How could she turn her back on justice just for her own selfish needs? I stared at her messages, my hands trembling, trying to process it all. This wasn't just about her cheating anymore. It was about the corruption intertwined with our tragedy. That evening, I confronted her again. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I showed her the messages, the proof I'd found. She was caught off guard, her eyes widening in shock. Then she started with her usual lies, saying I'd misunderstood, that Carter was just a friend, that I didn't know what I was talking about. But I wasn't buying any of it. I knew she'd been lying from the start. Her face went pale, her tone defensive and bitchy all at once. You don't know what you're saying, Mike. You're just jealous because I won't let you control everything. Carter's harmless. Harmless. I shot back, furious. He's helping you cover up evidence in a case that was supposed to bring justice for Emma. Do you even hear yourself? You're protecting someone connected to the case against that drunk driver. You're lying, manipulating, and playing both sides. You've been using me, using the system, and I don't know what the hell is more disgusting anymore. Your betrayal or the fact that you're willing to sell out everything for your own selfish reasons. She looked at me like I just punched her in the face. Her bitchy smirk faded for a moment, replaced with pure rage. You don't understand, Mike. You're just jealous because I'm smarter than you. I can do whatever I want and you can't stop me. That's when I saw the true nature of her, cold, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything to protect herself. Her lies, her deception, they weren't just about her cheating. They were about her trying to hide her involvement with Carter, her role in covering up evidence, and her blatant disregard for justice. I felt a sinking emptiness inside. It was like everything I believed in was falling apart. I'd always thought I was fighting for Emma, for her memory, for justice. And now I realized my wife had been part of the problem all along. That realization hit harder than anything else. How do you move on from that? How do you forgive someone who's betrayed not just you, but the entire purpose of what we were supposed to stand for? I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to do something, but I didn't know what yet. The betrayal was too deep, the lies too woven into our lives. I just wanted to find a way to get out of this mess, to somehow make things right, though I knew deep down that might never be possible. The days that followed were a blur of planning and trying to piece together what I'd uncovered. I knew I couldn't just walk away without doing something. Lisa's involvement with Carter, her attempts to hide evidence, all of it pointed to something far bigger than just infidelity. I started digging into the case files, looking for any signs she might have tampered with evidence or manipulated the system from the inside. The more I looked, the more I realized how deeply she was entangled. Evidence was missing, files that could have sealed the case, testimonies that had been suppressed. I found reports with red flags, notes about evidence not admissible, and some suspicious shifts in the case timeline, like someone was deliberately trying to cover their tracks. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. All this time I'd thought my wife was just a bitchy, cheating wife, but she was also someone who had actively helped protect the people who might have been involved in Emma's death. And Carter, he was supposed to be our ally, the prosecutor fighting for justice. Instead, he'd been playing both sides, using Lisa as a pawn. I felt sick to my stomach. Finding out about her involvement was one thing, but realizing she'd been part of a cover-up that might have let the real killers walk free, that was a whole new level of betrayal. It was like Emma's killer was still out there and my wife was protecting him. I decided I had to escalate this. I couldn't just sit on this information and watch the truth stay buried. I contacted a private investigator I knew from a friend, someone who specialized in corruption and cover-ups. I handed over the evidence I'd secretly collected. Watching her lie, seeing her bitchy attitude, her sneers, they all came rushing back. But now I saw her for what she really was, A manipulator, a liar, someone who'd let her own needs blind her to justice. I knew I had to do everything I could to expose her, to make sure the truth saw the light, no matter how much it hurt. That night I sat her down again, not to argue but to threaten. I told her I knew everything. I laid it out, her affair, her involvement with Carter, the evidence tampering. I told her I was going to expose her, that I'd go to the authorities, and that I'd make sure everyone knew what she'd been doing. Her face twisted in anger, her bitchy smirk replaced with pure hatred. "You think you can destroy me? You're just a jealous nobody, Mike. You don't know what you're talking about. I'll deny everything and you'll be the one left looking like an idiot." Her words didn't scare me. If anything, they confirmed I was right to do this. I couldn't live with the guilt of letting her get away with it, especially knowing what it meant for Emma, for justice. I told her I was done with her lies, that I was going to fight for the truth, even if it meant destroying everything she'd built. I knew she'd try to stop me, threaten me, maybe even turn everything against me. But I wasn't going to back down. I'd spend whatever it took to bring Carter and Lisa's lies to light, to expose the corruption and finally get some semblance of justice for Emma. I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. Part of me hoped that revealing everything would somehow fix things, that maybe Emma's case would finally be set right. But I also knew that the fallout could be huge. I was risking everything: my marriage, my reputation, maybe even my safety. Still, I couldn't bear the thought of living with her lies anymore. If I was going to do this, it had to be all or nothing. And deep down, I knew that once I opened this door, there was no going back. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of chaos and anticipation. I handed everything over to the investigator, who promised to look into the case files, Carter's involvement and Lisa's role in the cover-up. I knew that exposing her was going to shake our entire town, maybe even the legal system itself. Every day, I'd wake up with the weight of what I was about to do pressing down on me. I felt like I was dragging my family into a storm, but I couldn't turn away. Emma deserved justice, and the truth deserved to come out, no matter how ugly it was. Lisa, of course, didn't take it lying down. She started acting even more bitchy, throwing tantrums, accusing me of stalking her, calling me paranoid. She tried to manipulate the situation, playing the victim, crying about how I was destroying our marriage, how I was crazy for suspecting her. It was almost laughable, but I knew better. That fake bitchy mask she wore was just that, masking a cold, calculated woman who'd done everything to cover her own ass. I could see right through her bullshit now. Every time she screamed at me, insisting she was innocent, I'd think about the evidence about Carter's messages and realize she was just trying to buy time, trying to spin this into some kind of pity party so I'd back off. And then came the day I'd been dreading, the day I received a call from the investigator. He told me they'd found concrete proof that Lisa had tampered with evidence, deleted files, and had been actively working with Carter to manipulate the case. It was worse than I'd imagined. It wasn't just an affair, it was conspiracy. They'd protected some powerful people connected to the case, people who wanted to keep Emma's killer free, maybe even involved in it. My wife had been complicit in that cover-up. The realization hit me like a punch in the stomach, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. The truth was out now. Finally, I could see what she was really capable of. I confronted Lisa again, this time with everything laid out on the table. Her bitchy attitude was gone. She was just a cornered animal. "You lied to me," I said quietly, trying to hold back the anger. "You've been working with Carter all along, covering up evidence, maybe even helping to hide Emma's killer. You used me, used our daughter's death as a cover to protect yourself and whoever is involved. How could you do that? How could you turn your back on everything we believed in?" Her response was a bitter smile, her eyes filled with venom. "You don't get it, do you? I did what I had to do. The system's corrupt, Mike. You think I wanted to be the bad guy? I just wanted to survive. And Emma's case, if I didn't help, the truth would come out. And then what? Emma would still be dead and her killer would walk free. I did it for us, for our family. You're just too blind to see that." That's when I realized the depth of her obsession with control. She had twisted everything, their betrayal, the lies, the cover-ups, into some twisted justification. and her bitchy, manipulative personality had only gotten worse. She was dangerous now more than ever. The woman I'd loved, the woman I married, was gone, replaced by someone who'd throw her own daughter's memory under the bus to save herself. I knew I couldn't fix this. I couldn't save her from herself. It was time to make a decision. Either fight to expose her fully or cut my losses and get out before she destroyed everything else. I made my choice. I called the authorities myself, handed over all the evidence and told them everything I knew. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but I couldn't let her get away with what she'd done. Watching her in that moment, so cold, so bitchy and unrepentant, I felt a mixture of rage and heartache. It was like losing my wife all over again, only this time, I knew the truth about who she really was. Emma's case was finally going to get the justice it deserved, because I refused to let her be silenced anymore. Now, I just hope that the truth will set everything right, even if it's a cold comfort after everything I've been through. I've learned that sometimes, the people closest to us wear masks that hide the real monsters. And sometimes, you have to tear down those masks yourself to find out what's underneath. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this. I'll never forget Emma, and I won't stop fighting for her justice, no matter what it takes. After everything was exposed, the fallout was immediate and brutal. The police raided our house, taking evidence, and Carter was placed under investigation for his role in covering up the case. Lisa was arrested on charges of evidence tampering, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Watching her go through that process was almost surreal. The woman I'd married, the woman I thought I knew, she looked defeated, but beneath that, I could see that bitchy, manipulative streak still lurking. She kept insisting she was doing what was necessary, that she protected our family. I just stared at her, sick to my stomach, knowing the truth now, knowing what she'd done. The town responded with shock, whispers spreading about the scandal. People I once trusted looked at me with pity, some with disgust. I knew this would follow me forever, that I'd be branded as the man whose wife betrayed everything, including Emma. Still, I felt a strange sense of relief. Justice had finally been served, and even though it was bitter, I could breathe a little easier knowing the cover-up was over. Emma's killer might still be out there, but at least now the truth had a fighting chance. I felt like I'd finally done what I was supposed to do, even if it meant losing my wife in the process. As for Lisa, her bitchy attitude hadn't disappeared entirely. She continued to lie in court, to spin her version of events, but the evidence was overwhelming. She'd betrayed me, betrayed Emma, and betrayed the justice we all deserved. She ended up serving time, though she swore she'd get out and still try to manipulate her way back into some semblance of control. I knew better now. She was a cold, selfish woman who'd do anything to save herself, always had been. The thought that she'd been involved with Carter, that she'd actively helped hide evidence, left a bitter taste in my mouth. But I also knew I couldn't change what was done. The only thing I could do was move forward for Emma's sake. I've learned that sometimes, the people closest to us can hide the darkest secrets. That betrayal cuts deeper than we ever expect, and justice isn't always pretty. But I found strength in knowing I fought for Emma, that I uncovered the truth that was buried for too long. I focus now on raising our daughter, giving her the love and stability she needs, even in the face of everything I've been through. I don't trust easily anymore, and I'm cautious about who I let in. But I have hope that one day I can rebuild my life, without her, without the lies. Most of all, I want to warn anyone reading this, be careful who you trust. Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones capable of the worst betrayals. And when that happens, you better have the courage to face the truth and fight for what's right, no matter how painful it gets. Because in the end, justice isn't just about punishing the guilty. It's about holding on to what's real and protecting the memory of those we lost. Emma's memory is everything to me now, and I'll make sure her story isn't buried under lies and secrets. It's a harsh lesson, but one I'll carry with me always.